were just sharing, you had some interesting theories about women, Dan. Do you want to repeat them on air now in the harsh light of day?
Yeah, I've been doing some reading on a Project Identity Europa forums about women, and as I understand it, women have to immerse themselves fully in water like every 24 hours, or they'll die or they'll have to return to like a river or a lake. And if they don't, they won't renew their spiritual powers.
Is that what the movie Gremlins is about?
No, Gremlins is about the evils of fried chicken and why you shouldn't feed it to your children because it destroys them.
I've legit never seen Gremlins. Is it good?
It's a fun movie. It's a fun, like, I don't know. Definitely it's a nostalgia thing, but like as far as like Christmas like family movies, it's pretty fun.
Wait, it's a Christmas movie?
It's a Christmas movie. Yeah. It's at Christmas.
It also apparently has a lot of lessons about women.
Yeah.
About
that one's about children.
Their nature.
Yeah, you can't feed fried chicken to your children or they'll turn into fucking monsters and kill your town. The best subplot in that movie is that it's implied that during World War II, the Gremlins, like, fucked up Allied airplanes and shit, like, broke the engines up before bombing
the Nazis.
Wait.
Yeah. Like
That's
the
funny.
Gremlin,
the old guys.
they were weaponized by Nazis?
Even the Minions movie didn't attempt.
What, the Minions movie?
In the Minions movie, they canonically are frozen during the time period of Hitler's ascension.
That's clever. But were they frozen during the Armenian genocide?
I'll have to check.
Hang on a
Found the
minute.
loophole.
I've been doing a lot of reading on Turkish nationalist web forums, and I understand
I think the Minions are...
Minion avatars.
the great lie. No, the Armenian genocide did happen. It's horrible. But that stuff about women is true.
That stuff about women is true, and if I ever saw a woman in real life, I'd tell her that to my face. Unfortunately, I live a life of monastic seclusion here in the highest peaks of the Rocky Mountains, with only me and the Fraternal Order of Autumn, the Brotherhood here, to spend my lonely days. Apart from this podcast, which I beam out to people regularly.
Yeah, I have a brain condition where I can't see women. I can hear them, and all the other senses too. But I can't see them.
Yeah, they're just static. It's a void.
Yeah.
Importantly, you can believe them, but you can't.
I always believe women. I have to because they have to explain things to me a lot because I can't.
They
see
do.
them.
Because I
And
can't
I'm
see
always
them.
talking over them because I can't hear them or see them. We call that mental condition graduating from Prager University, actually. And
Steven
That's the worst thing
Crowderism.
I ever do.
I stole that from episode 1. What a great shot. My God. Speaking of the rule that you should never bring up a better podcast on your podcast.
Yeah, this is Story Break. Welcome.
This is 30-Minute Worlds, a podcast where we build a fantasy or scientific fictional universe within 30 minutes or more, based off of 3 random prompt words. One of us 4 gentlemen, myself being Walter, with me my co-hosts Dan, Chessman, and Belvin, is going to be dubbed the lore lad, who gets absolute creative control over the setting and can veto any idea that we bring forth. Now, today's lore lad for dice roll is Dan Kennedy.
Oh boy, here we go. All right, what fucking bullshit do you have for me today?
I have a question. Have we said salt yet?
We've no, wait, I don't know that we have.
I
don't
like-
know that we have.
I think sand maybe has.
Our biggest mistake was not compiling a ledger of the shit.
Yeah, like how hard will it be to remember?
Yeah,
we're
that
facing
was
it.
your biggest mistake.
No, it's the thing is that I just have no idea where it is.
Oh, just as useful.
We've gone through like 100 at this point, so
I'll say
we can't
salt. I don't think we've said salt.
That's
So I
fine.
think
Salt's
it's a good word.
one.
I'm going to say lens.
Okay.
I've been having this. I got this word in my head. I'm just gonna go with it. Impact.
Ooh. Okay. All right.
Salt, lens, and impact.
So from lens, I'm getting something actually based on our riffs at the start of the episode.
Yeah.
I'm just imagining a guy with a monocle that lets him see into like see things he wouldn't be able to see otherwise, like through these lenses.
Yes,
You
like
can-
he has a prescription.
Yeah, I mean, not to go back to that like camera obscura thing we had going, but something with like being able to see other dimensions, other forms.
The year is 2045. A revolutionary drug called Impact allows people to use monocles to see far off.
We don't need the rest of the episode. We got it.
We did it, boys. Back home by Christmas. I was thinking, like, so I agree with you on the lens thing about using it as almost like a spotting, like seeking impacts of. What immediately jumped to mind was like a guy in like an orbital facility of some kind scanning a planet with a lens and then sending people down to the planet to quickly mine like salt deposits of like some sort of valuable resource and then extracting it off of like a planet.
Why salt? Because salt is readily available on like most planets, right? It can be found both underground and in the sea.
Well, so there is you're thinking probably of sodium chloride, like table salt.
Here we go.
Which is the most common salt. It's what
You have
our
20
oceans are filled with. Look, no, I'm just saying there's lots of other kinds of salt. A salt is basically a word for anything that is like, I forget what it is. It's like two things joined together. One of them. It's a lot of pressure. Okay, you can't see it, but he's counting up on his fingers.
And this has been Chessman's Chemistry Corner.
And that's it. And we've learned about salt. We've learned there's different types of it, and it's complicated.
No, I know what he means. It's like garlic salt.
What if,
Sodium chloride is a sodium salt. There's other kinds of salts with other kinds of minerals.
the thing, I have to be careful with this because I've been reading Dune and I can't just make it spice, right?
Yeah,
like,
you can't.
I can't just do that. I'll be sued
What
to
if
death.
salt is important magically, right? For
Sure.
ritual, for sealing things.
Mhm.
Yes.
It always kind of has been. What if this is a scientific and magical setting? The lens, to my mind, strike me as something scientific.
Okay, how about instead of an orbital like thing, it's like Belvin said, you can kind of peek through like Stargate style, like a lens, not to other dimensions but to other planets, right?
What if there are these lenses? Oh, go on, Belvin.
Well, I just really like the idea of other planets, but not necessarily a sci-fi structure. So, like, you're stuck on this planet. Like, we're not talking about spaceships, but you are looking into other planets. I like that a lot.
What if?
Okay.
So, what if there are
Okay.
these things in the galaxy, these lenses, or maybe not the galaxy? If we want to go more magical, we call it the Emprian or something. But they were built by we don't know who. They're just there, and they're not holes in space. Really, they're holes. Well, they are, but they're holes through which only light can pass through, and no other matter. So you can really only see through them. And they were put there in a way so that one could theoretically observe different parts of the galaxy from very far away without needing to travel there at all.
Yeah.
And
Because
Yeah.
if you're going for some sort of like maybe this is we're looking at this with a fantasy lens for like what we're talking about right now, but like there's a lot of I like the idea of a setting that used to be really scientific, and that's who set this up a long time ago.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you think of it's a piece of technology that is only able to transmit light. That is instantaneous communication. That's fantastic for like a technological civilization.
Yeah, but these people don't know about radio waves or anything. They only are like, oh, we can see out of it, but we can't go through it.
Well, and this instantaneous communication, I think we should say it's planets and not dimensions. I think that's this. I kind of like the vibe a little bit more. It enables you to create an empire in space without anything like faster than light travel.
So these people are raised on what's called like the hub world or the spoke, and imagine a world that has like it's like Saturn where it has this big ring around it, but instead of one ring, there's like 12 or 13 of these rings, and they're all different lenses that kind of circle the planet. And from this planet, you could look onto theoretically thousands of different places in the galaxy.
Okay.
That's fucking cool. It's like a telescope planet. Yeah.
And they've grown up with this. That's their whole mythology has always incorporated this, like, oh yeah, the things the gods put here, we don't know why, you know? And it's possible for their magicians or their spellcasters to, I'm gonna get wiggity woggity here, temporarily astrally project themselves through a lens, just like mentally, and glean a bit more about like that sector of space, perhaps even travel beyond the rim of it into unknown parts. They have no technology with which to traverse space, really. They can only do so psychically with the help of these devices.
I love that. And I've read like pretty out there hippy dippy, like the idea that on other planets there are like higher consciousness beings, right? Like that, like, you know, Venus isn't empty or like Uranus isn't empty. It's just that the life forms there are operating on a different dimensional scale. So that's maybe sort of the magical beings out in space that these lens wizards are plundering.
Well, I like to think that the people who made the lenses or whatever made them, they were of forms that could traverse through them. Like they were made of energy or light.
Yeah.
They were like living lightning, like something we can't even conceive of, but they made it. And it's not a limitation to them to travel through it, but it is a limitation now for the humans who find themselves here.
What about, so these rings, Zach, because I understand that the rings are basically on planets like collections of like rocks and like dust and shit.
Yeah.
What if they're salt rings? Like they're like giant chunks of like space salt.
Potentially. I had a different idea for the salt integration.
I think it's cool if they're salt rings, because then you have also like salt rain and salt coming into the atmosphere from above.
Yeah.
And there could be like times of year too when the salt is like really coming in, and that's like the best time of year for magic, or like, and it's kind of like a like salty rain or like a salt, just like dandruff, like from a volcanic eruption almost.
That's definitely evocative. The idea I had for salt is that sometimes the folks that get astrally projected on project back. So there's a group of like police, the salters, who are charged with repelling them. And they're armed with salt-based weaponry.
Wait, so they project back? Like, what do you mean?
So, basically, like, they're forces that we sometimes tamper with on this planet, that can then project themselves back onto the planet and try to either wreak revenge or get something. Not all of them are hostile, I assume.
There are psychic beings that can come through
psychic attacks.
The lens.
And so the salters are charged with repelling these not uncommon attacks.
Even though we're not actually going out to explore things, there are these are still
they
like
can
for
see
instance,
us actually
there's
projecting
like
sometimes. And perhaps their dynamic is such that it does feel like theft in some way.
I do think too, it's a really cool idea to have the threat in this setting be beings that we're not capable of seeing, and that can stalk the streets or even potentially be among us, like on the planet right now, and that we don't know are there. I think that's really cool. I think salt as like a protective circle is also kind of a neat idea, because it already forms a circle around the planet.
Yeah.
Right, that would be cool, because like a salter patrol gets a report of like a fucking hospital has been attacked by one of these psychic beings. They make a giant circle around it to weaken it and pin it in place. You have to like exercise it.
The salt ring. The salt ring is a protective circle. It's a ring made of ring world with a ring of salt is like like an anti-demonic sort of. So that's brilliant. That's brilliant.
We can totally marry those ideas. I feel like I like that.
Well, what if? So we said there are 10 rings. What if there are like 10 systems out there, 10 galaxies?
I think there's more than one lens per ring. Also, I think it's pretty easy in the night sky to look up and be like, oh, there's like 2 or 3 lenses out like right now.
Well, the idea being that the rings aren't native to the planet, that the rings are created by the salt that's being pulled through the lenses.
Well, the ring, and the rings were also kind of woven into being probably by this whatever those who came before. They're
Left
called
by the precursor.
Yeah. Those that came before. We don't know what their forms were, but they were doubtlessly psychically powerful and had bodies that were capable of traversing through the lens, which we really can't do.
Right. I guess
I also like that these things that live on Earth, those who breach the circle, that's what they're called. They are naturally attracted to psychically potent people, and they kind of hone themselves toward them, and bring disaster naturally.
What I was trying to do is set up some sort of world building where there are 10 rings, maybe like 10 different dimensional frequencies or 10 different galaxies that they're looking into. And so, there are sort of 10 classifications, and then the salters have to have the right lens available. There are 10 different kinds of lenses, and each one can only see like that classification.
Oh, to see what came through what lens?
I like that. And what if the lenses, the way that they work with the different rings is it has to be made of materials that aren't native to the planet. They're they are impacted metals that are mined from asteroids and used to house a glass.
So they're very
sheet.
rare.
Yeah. And if you have lenses,
that's
you'd be very
impact
rich.
for you.
There you go.
There's impact, man.
Yeah.
Yes.
Sneaky peek.
As well as the impact of having your brain sucked out by an invisible alien who then dissipates into a cloud of smoke, presumably to leave the planet forever.
Well, and here's the thing. The lenses, part of the reason that they think that the precursors put these lenses in space is because it actually makes it very difficult to use them as invasion points. Because if you can travel through light, you can't necessarily travel through
air.
Space.
Yeah.
Out of the air, through space, through glass, but what happens is maybe one of them falls and falls onto the planet, and now there is a lens on the planet.
I do like there's a fragment of a lens or something on the planet that could be really useful too for exposition purposes, because that would be how we know we can't go through it. Also, because we can't get to space with the level of technology that this society has, which I think we should talk more about the society and about kind of the major cities.
I agree. I had a thought about that, in that perhaps their construction practices have been influenced by the presence of the rings in the sky, and they build these concentric ringed cities that connect to one another. From space, they almost imitate the rings.
Yeah, well, I think there would also, insofar as when they astrally project, they see structures. Their cities would sometimes mimic those structures.
Yeah,
alien architecture.
Yeah.
I think it would be cool when they astrally project and they start to leave the hub world. They look around themselves on the planet as they're about to leave, and they see all these structures that they couldn't see before, buildings left behind on a completely different plane of existence by whatever precursor race once habitated here.
Yeah, that's cool.
Oh, yeah, I think that's
on the current planet.
Yeah.
Okay.
Another level of reality that they're only able to see right as they're actually projecting.
Okay.
Provocative. So what? Can we nail down what exactly they're taking back from the astral projection?
I mean,
there are multiple options. I think they can spy technology.
That's what I think. Knowledge is the main thing that you can easily bring back with you. So I think that maybe if they find a trove of ancient knowledge, anything involving language would be super important. They can use to translate more stuff. And I think there's certain elements of their society that are more technologically advanced than the rest because of this extracted knowledge.
If these gates or lenses poured out into space, there are going to be spacefaring civilizations that find some of them, that are fascinated by them, and they can't go through them. And they're going to hunker down around the gate and watch the planet, just permanently, to observe the people on it. And so if you astrally project, you can kind of go and communicate with the people through the gate and learn all sorts of cool shit too.
Yeah, I mean, we'll probably say that there are some friendly ones and some unfriendly ones.
I would assume that mostly fascinated by us. and our ability to kind of travel.
Just to keep riffing on the sort of like new age mythology that's out there, there's like positive and negative energy beings, right? I think that'd be a fine thing to adopt here. And
the Nordic reptilian dichotomy.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But when you're projecting out, sometimes you find a positive one, which are like, oh, hello, being. And sometimes you find the negative ones, which then try to chase you down and suck out your soul.
It'd be funny. There's like races of aliens with like real concrete ships who are just hovering outside like 3 maybe of the rings. So we're in communication. We're in communion with like 3 different alien races, and they have their own kind of attitudes toward us. But then we talk to them and we're like, hey, do you know anything about like the psychic beings invading our planet that are invisible? And they're like, what the fuck are you talking about? They're like, what the fuck are you talking about?
Crazy hippies.
Psychic beings.
Yeah.
Well, to drill down the society, so we've established salters, like, the grizzled police force, psychic police. They're seers, right? Like the folks who actually do the projection. We're probably like the most valued members of society is like the default, I think, here, because they bring back all kinds of stuff.
I do think that salt has a very... We've kind of already established that there's different kinds of salt that are raining on this planet, and I think that they would fall in different bands. I think there would be different colors of like salt. Maybe some of them are deserts, and maybe some of them are snow.
Well, there would be like periodic salt winds too that you could track and be like, oh, we have a like south salt westerly,
right,
from like the inner ring. Like you can determine where it came from.
You're playing with colors. They could be Roy G. Biv salts.
Yeah.
Like one ring is violet, one ring is yellow, one ring is...
I like the idea of the salt being
might
like...
as well.
I know. Well, do you want like the grayscale?
No, I'm with Belvin. I want multicolored salt. I think that's cooler.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think that kind of just vibes because just the vibe of this setting to me is sort of like some like sort of infinite new agey possibility.
I do like, because I do picture them when they astral project, and it's like a beam of light that then splits into a rainbow on the other side of the lens.
Well, it's like I
which
went to
think
like
is
a
cool.
black sand beach once, and it's like fucking cool.
As I had this pocket idea that the salt, what it actually is a sort of salt of light, that it is not like a mineral that's bound up with another mineral, but like light that is somehow bound up physically, and like it can travel through the lens. That's the whole power of it, and that's why when people ingest it and it gets into their brains, they can project through the lens, is because they're like suffused with light.
That spice thing.
It's a little bit of a spice thing, but spice is more like it just makes you think really fast.
Recognition.
This is more like a
consciousness elevation.
As these kind of aliens come into contact with or like psychically powerful, or seers, let's call them. We have non-seers who are able to communicate with them through like light towers. Basically, if the only thing that could pass through the lens is light, then a way to communicate through light, like Morse code pretty much, would be developed actually pretty quickly. I would say a code that they could pick up on. So there are all these state actors who have these like big kind of towers that are constantly like trying to transmit and receive messages from these aliens. Maybe there's a faction who like maybe there's kind of a duplicitous alien race that's found the lens and they're like, oh, we want to elevate you. We need you guys to let us through, because they're convinced that we can do that. And
is this one
they
of
really
the
want
races that you see as in like ships outside the planet?
Maybe not all of them travel through ships.
Okay.
It'd be weird to have like 3 different armies of ships. I do think there should be a force that's trying to gain physical access to the planet and thinks we can like let them in or something, and they're convinced that like we're just bullshitting them. But they have a cadre of people on Earth who are like, yeah, we should let them in. We should let them elevate us.
Well, it's funny. It's like it's gunboat diplomacy in space. They're just like sitting in orbit with giant fucking Mac cannons.
Great. I to have this idea now of like, because if you're using these lenses to travel through, and if there's a threat beyond them. The one thing we haven't thought of is that a lens is there's the possibility of like you have one lens, you have another lens behind it.
Yeah, they can block each other occasionally because of how the rings are set up. I thought about that too.
But do they block each other, or do they like? Is it a constructive sort of thing? Like,
do they amplify each other,
or do they?
I
they
think
reveal
when
completely
a lens
different places
overlaps.
entirely.
Yeah, I think that's cooler when a lens overlaps with another one in kind of a rare event. You get it has to be kind of like a total overlap, but you get a lens to a new place that you've never seen before. I think that's cool.
Yeah.
So what happens
when all of them?
Yeah, the prophecy that when all 10 align, the consciousness of the planet splinters and is sent out into space.
Yeah. Very good.
The day of ascension. Yeah.
The day of impact.
The day of impact. Well, impact implies that when all 10 align, something's going to come through them and hit the planet.
Yeah,
which I find to be cooler than everyone leaves the planet.
Yeah.
I find it's a prophecy of great salvation or great doom.
Well, it's both. Something comes through.
Well, different cultures would have different interpretations of it.
Yeah.
I think it could be both. I mean, it could be like what Belvin's saying, like everybody's because we've established that there are beings, right, that are psychic and don't have bodies. When the prophecy is fulfilled, I think that happens. Everybody's consciousness elevates and they start going into space.
Ascension.
But also people can come through like at that point. Like maybe that's like the opening.
The prophecy is that something comes through when all 10 align. But before that can happen, 4 warriors of light go through
Fuck up.
and defeat it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I love fantasy JRPGs that turn out to be in sci-fi settings. Always a fun twist.
Oh, man.
Is there anything else we need to hone in on here, specifically?
I feel like there's a lot more we could touch on. But it's now been 35 minutes, and frankly, I don't want to give these hogs any more podcasts than they pay for. Which is 0, by the way.
That's right. Yeah. Insulting the audience. Way to go.
Yeah, at this point now I'm thinking of like farming salt, like pastoral practices, traditions of
real quick before we wrap up the ep, and for the record, my thing is less than 30 minutes. So I think you may have some unpodcast riffing on that.
I probably do, actually.
Just real quick, maybe thinking of different color salt, like the different qualities that would come with that and the civilizations.
Oh, God. No. We got into this with different colors of paint with another host, and it really ate up 40 minutes of time.
Just throw out a few qualities. Just a few qualities to categorize. Don't you want to categorize?
Satan dancing before us, just insisting that we define a few qualities of different colors.
Don't you want?
Obviously, white is good.
Oh yeah,
black is bad.
Okay, Tolkien.
And all the other colors are lazy.
We start.
The other salts are lazy.
All right, we opened this episode with some wildly offensive comments. Now we're going to end it.
Waka waka.
Purples are the dreamers.
Yeah, and you can smoke the green salt and get you wicked high,
bro. The green ones chill.
Shut up. Dan, what time do you have on your Audacity?
I have 36, but there's definitely some minutes of pre-pod riffing on there.
Belvin, what do you have?
It has been 31 minutes.
It's now, about 31 minutes.
Well, folks, that's our show.
Bye.
If you like this episode, you can subscribe to us on your podcasting service of choice to get new episodes every Saturday. If you like, go ahead and write us a review on iTunes. Share us with all your world-building friends. It really helps us out. Our art is courtesy of the talented and wonderful Shell Tor at Jovial Paradox on Twitter. You can tweet at us too at LoreLads or send us spirited hate mail at 30minuteworlds@gmail.com. Thanks for listening. As always, don't encourage Belvin.